Okay, so today we're going to go over problems number 7 through problems number 14 on the Accuplacer Arithmetic math test. So I'm teaching in a slow manner, and this is so that if you haven't been in school in a while, that you can follow along and so that you can feel confident enough to pass your test. I don't want to speed through these problems. We get the problems correct together, and then you go off on your tests on your own, and you say, oh my gosh, I forgot what to do. So there are some problems we can move through pretty quickly, and there are going to be some problems that we need to explain a different set of skills in order to solve that problem. And so this is going to be the extended version, the slow version. So if you're with me, you're with me. And if you're not, you may like some of my other videos that are a little bit sped up to a little bit of faster speed. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, guys. So it says, if Manuel deposits 25% of $130 into a savings account, what is the amount of his deposit? So we're trying to find 25% of 130. Anytime we're saying of, that's multiplying. So we are going to try to multiply 25% and 130. So you're probably saying, oh my gosh, how do you multiply a percent by a whole number? Well, technically you can't unless you're using a calculator, but there are no calculators that are being used on this part of the exam. So we're going to have to multiply the percentage times a whole number by changing the percentage into a decimal. So we're going to change 25% into a decimal. How do we do that? So you write 25%. You take that percentage sign and you move the decimal place over twice. 1, 2 to the left. And so 25% is 0.25. There are certain percentages that you should just memorize. So if you have a moment on the side of your piece of paper, just write these down. 25%, 50%, 75%. Written as a decimal, 0.25. 0.5 or 0.50 and 0.75. These are the ones you should just know by heart. Take a few minutes after we're done reviewing together and just memorize those 3 percentages. It's going to save you a bunch of time when you're taking this test. But if you ever are left with a percentage and you need to change it into a decimal, just move the decimal place over 2 to the left. Okay, so now that we have 25% as a decimal, 0.25, we can now multiply that decimal times the whole number. So now we're going to do 0.25 times 130. That's how we're going to find 25% of 130. So now we're going to multiply 130 times 0.25. We're moving on to a new skill. The new skill is multiplying whole numbers times decimals. Now, if you're like me, I don't like fractions and I don't like decimals. The reason why I don't like fraction to decimals is because I get really confused, or sometimes you lose your place, and it's just more complicated than if you used numbers that are not fractions and numbers that are not decimals. So how can we get rid of this decimal temporarily and then put it back when we get the answer? Well, let's count how many decimal places are in 25. 1, 2. 2 decimal places. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. Now that I know how many decimal places there are, that's the amount of decimal places I'm going to put back in my answer when I do get an answer. But now that I know how many decimal places I'm accountable for and that I can't lose, then I can take this, and instead of doing 130 times 0.25, I'm going to now do 130 times 25, and it's just going to be a regular multiplication problem for the moment. So let's go ahead and multiply. Again, this is for people who may be struggling, may have not been in school in a while. So if it's easy for you to multiply these out, go right ahead, skip a little bit further. But if you need just a small reminder, stick with me, okay? So I have 130 times 25. 0 times 5 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6. Cross off the 5. Make the 0 below. 2 times 0 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. And now we're going to go ahead and add these 2 rows. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1 and have the 3. Now remember, because we took out 2 decimal places, we have to put 2 decimal places back in the answer. So we're going to move the decimal place over 2. And so now our answer is going to be 32.50. And that is going to be 25% of 130. So the answer is going to be C. So you're probably thinking, okay, Miss Amber, that was a lot of information, a lot of skills that we were practicing. Yes, that's correct. But you need to get good at those skills in order to answer these problems on your test. So you can go ahead and move on to problem number 8 if that was easy for you. If it wasn't easy for you, let me just very quickly show you what we did again. 25% of 130. We changed the percentage into a decimal, 0.25. The of is multiplication, and we're multiplying it by 130. We didn't want to multiply 130 times 0.25 because it's difficult sometimes to multiply numbers times decimals. So we counted the decimals, 1, 2. We wrote how many decimals there should be. Then we multiplied 130 times 25. We got 3250. And then we put the 2 decimal places back in the answer, 1, 2. And we got 3250 as our answer. If you need more practice than this, I made a workbook with a bunch of practice where you can practice changing percentages into decimals and also where you can practice finding percentages of another number. So if you are interested in that workbook, my link is going to be in the description box. Let's go ahead and move to problem number 8, and you guys are doing really well. Don't give up. So now 8 says, what is 1,582 plus 761? So this is addition, 582, then 761. We're going to go ahead and add these 2 numbers together. Now, if it helps you to put columns when you're adding, go ahead and put those columns. I always say that if they give you a scrap piece of paper to work with that scrap piece of paper. It does not matter what you do in order to get the right answer. Just do whatever it takes in order to get the right answer. So let's go ahead and add these columns together. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And then we have 8 plus 6, which is 14. Carry the 1. Then we have 7 plus 5, which is 12. Plus 1 is 13. Carry the 1. And we have 2. So our answer should be 2,343. Now let's go to problem number 9. Xiaming is making cookies. Each batch of cookies uses 3 eggs. If Xiaming has 20 eggs, and assuming he has enough of the other ingredients to make the cookies, what is the greatest number of batches that he can make? Okay, so remember in our last video, we talked about the word each. Each stands for multiplication. So we're going to have to be either multiplying it out, or if we're trying to figure out, okay, how many combinations of 3 eggs are in 20, we may be doing the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So let's see a couple different ways that we could solve this problem. If each batch takes 3 eggs, then I would just write 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 until I made it to 20 eggs. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. That's the maximum that we could do, because if you did another one, then that would be over 20 eggs. And we only have 20 eggs. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will be able to make 6 batches of cookies if we have 20 eggs. So the answer would be B. But, okay, say I don't want to count like that and I just want to figure out, okay, 20 divided by 3 is equal to what? So we can do long division. 20 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 20. How many times? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Okay, so it goes into 6 times. And then you'd have 18. And you'd have 2 eggs left over. So because you don't have enough eggs left over to make another batch, your answer would be 6. Let's go ahead and move on to the next problem. Problem number 10. What is the value of 385 plus 0.004 plus 0.117? I did my best to line everything up. Maybe a little bit angled improperly, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to put my decimal place back in the answer, and let's go ahead and add them. So 4 plus 7 is 11, carry the 1. 5 plus 1 plus 1 is 7. 8 plus 1 is 9. And 3 plus 0 plus 0 is 3. So the answer is 3.971. Remember, when you're adding decimals and you're adding them out, make sure on your scrap sheet of paper that you have everything lined up and that you don't forget to include the decimal in your answer. 3.971. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go to problem number 11. Which of the following is equivalent to 8 over 25? Okay, so in our previous video, we understood fractions a little bit more. We know that our fraction can also be written as a numerator divided by the denominator. So 8 over 25 is the same as saying 8 divided by 25. So if we want to change a fraction to a decimal, you just divide the numerator, the top number, by the denominator, which is the bottom number. So we're going to do 8 divided by 25. We have to do long division in order to do that since we're not able to use a calculator. So you're going to look at this and you're going to say, what are the steps to do a long division problem? On the side of your piece of paper, I like to write them. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then I do a little arrow to remind me to repeat if necessary. So the first step is to divide. Well, 25 can't go into 8, it's too small. So if I want to add a 0 to this, I can make it into 80. But the catch is that if I add a 0, I need to add a decimal place on top where the answer is. So 25 goes into 80. So we're just going to count by 25. 25, 50, 75. So 25 goes into 80 3 times. And then you're left with 75 left. So you divide, then you multiply. 3 times 25 is 75. Then you subtract 80 minus 75, which is 5. Okay? Subtract. And now it says bring down. Now there's nothing else to bring down, but I want to go a little bit further so I can add another 0. At this point, you don't have to add another decimal point in the answer because there already is one. So now let's bring down the 0. We bring down and let's start this all over again. We're going to divide 25 into 50. That's 2. Then we're going to multiply. 2 times 25 is 50. Good. Then we're going to subtract. 50 minus 50 is 0. And we're left with the remainder of 0, so we don't have to go any further. So 8 over 25 is equivalent to 0.32, which the answer is going to be B. If you need more help practicing how to do long division, and I'm going to be honest with you, I do not like long division. I stopped doing long division 5th grade. I do not like long division. We always have access to calculators. We have calculators on our phone. We have calculators when we're in math class. So I'm not the biggest fan of long division. Unfortunately, you're not going to have access to a calculator when you're having to do these types of problems. So you need to remember the steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Don't be afraid on your worksheet or on your scrap piece of paper to write down the steps. Don't be embarrassed to make your check marks just to make sure that you don't miss a step. And then also just take your time when dividing. If you need more practice, my workbook has a few practice problems where you can do long division and you can just practice it out. Okay, so another long division problem, but we're going to be okay. What is the remainder when 599 is divided by 9? So 599 is going to be divided by 9. So again, you're going to say divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Repeat if necessary. Okay, so how many times does 9 go into 59? So some people don't like 9 times tables, and I totally get where you're coming from, but let's go ahead and see. So 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 5 is 45. It doesn't go, 9 times 6 is 54. So we're going to do 6. So 9 times 6 is 54. And then we're going to put 54 here. 6. So we divided. Then we multiply 6 times 9, which is 54. Then we subtract. 59 minus 54 is 5. And then we bring down the 9. And we're going to do that again. Okay, so 9 goes into 59. Again, it goes in 6 times. So 9 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54. Then we subtract, which is 5. And there's no more numbers to bring down. And because this is asking for a remainder, we're not going to add zeros. We want to know, okay, what is the remaining after we've done all the numbers here? What are you left with? This is the remainder. So it'll be remainder 5. So when they ask us, what is the remainder when 599 is divided by 9? The answer is going to be B. Okay, let's go ahead and go to question number 13. It says, a machine is currently set to a feed rate of 5.921 inches per minute. The machinist, I'm embarrassed. The machinist changes this setting to 6.088 IPM. By how much did the machinist increase the feed rate? Guys, don't judge me. I love to read. I do, I promise. Okay, so it's saying, and there's going to be an increase. So an increase means a number is going to be a little bit less than, and it's going to increase to another number. If you're trying to find an increase, that means that there is a difference. There is a difference between the initial amount and the next amount. If we're trying to find the difference, that is a word in math that denotes that we are subtracting. So we're going to subtract the higher number, which is 6.088, and we're going to subtract 5.921. So let's go ahead and subtract that. 8 minus 1 is 7. 8 minus 2 is 5. 0 minus 9. So do you remember how that's done? You have to go to its friend. You have to borrow 1, so the 6 becomes a 5. And then you borrow the 1, so the 0 becomes a 10. So now you do 10 minus 9, which is 1. And 5 minus 5 is 0. We bring down the decimal point. So the answer is not here. Oh, Miss Amber made a mistake. Sorry. 8 minus 2 is 6. Don't know why I wrote 5. Embarrassing. But that's okay. Mistakes happen as long as you correct yourself. And that's why it's always nice when you're taking a standardized test and they have options there. You can easily see, okay, well, I kind of got the answer, but did I accidentally write down the wrong number? And yes, Miss Amber wrote down the wrong number. My apologies. So the answer is A, 0.167 IPM. Please don't tell anybody that I read this problem like this. I'm not going to go back and re-record. I want you guys to be able to see that sometimes you make mistakes. So please be easy on me. We all mess up sometimes. Okay, so now we're going to go to problem number 14. And this is our last problem in this video. We're going to take our time and we're going to make our way through this. We're not going to be intimidated by it because if you look at the problem, there's a lot of reasons why we should be intimidated, but we're not going to be because we know what to do and we're getting better with our skills and it's going to be okay. So it says, which of the following correctly orders the values from least to greatest? So this means that we have to compare these three values to see, okay, in what order would we write them out from least to greatest? So the three options are 0.075, 0.75%, and 3/4. So we know how to change percentages into decimals because we practiced that on one of the very first problems in this video. And we also know how to change fractions into decimals. So because we know how to change each one of these into a decimal, then let's go ahead and change each one of these into a decimal. We also can change it in another way, but let's just start with, let's just start with putting them in decimals, and then I'll show you a second way that we can solve this problem. Okay, so 0.075 is already a decimal point. Then if we want to change 0.75% into a decimal, now you're probably saying, Miss Amber, it already has a decimal point in there. Yes, it does, but we still have to move it to the left. So we're going to go ahead and move it to the left. We're just going to start here instead of at the percentage sign. So 1, 2, and we're going to add a 0 here. So that is going to be 0.0075 as a decimal. Okay? And now we're going to write 3/4 as a decimal. Remember, 3/4 is the same as saying 3 divided by 4. Let's go ahead and do 3 divided by 4. So because we know that 4 can't go into 3, we need to add a 0. If we're going to add a 0, we need to add the decimal point. And now we're going to say, okay, how many times can 4 go into 30? These are the steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Then we're going to subtract. 30 minus 28 is 2. And then we're going to bring down. We're going to go ahead and bring down another number. Okay, how many times does 4 go into 25? So we divided. We're going to do 5 times 4, which is 20. We're going to subtract. 20 minus 20 is 0. And there's nothing more to bring down. So 3 divided by 4 is equal to 0.75. So now we know 3/4 is equal to 0.75. So now that they're all decimal points, we can compare them. But I just want to be super careful, and let's just compare them when they're on top of one another because it'll be easier to see. So let's have all the decimal points lined up. 0.0075 and 0.75. Let's go ahead and compare these. So which one is the smallest? So if we look at it, because this one right here has a 0, 0, it is going to be the smallest value. So 0.0075 is going to be the smallest. Okay? Then the next one, because this one has a 0 here, that'll be the next smallest. Okay? And then that means 0.75 would be the last. And so now we just got to figure out what were these symbols in its original form, because when you go to give the answer from least to greatest, if you look at the answers, they're back in their original form. So we just have to make sure that we put them back in the original form. So this 0.0075 was that 0.75%. This 0.075 was written as that decimal, so we're going to keep it as it, 0.075. And then this 0.75 was written as 3/4. So now we know the order from smallest to greatest. So we're going to go ahead and find that 0.75%, 0.075, and 3/4. So our answer is going to be A. If you feel like that was a lot of work, you're right. It was a lot of work. If you feel a little bit confused, I completely understand, because this problem had us doing a lot of work. It can easily feel overwhelming. But you have to remember that you've built the skills that you needed in order to get the right answer. We now know how we can convert percentages to decimals by moving the decimal point over 2 to the left. We know how we can convert a fraction into a decimal, and that's simply by dividing the numerator by the denominator. And so because we have all the skills that are needed in order to answer this problem, we just have to have patience with ourselves, and we need to have patience with the work that we're doing so that we can go ahead and get the right answer. If you made it this far in the video and you are basically to the end, I am going to show you one other way that you can solve this problem. But if you feel satisfied with what we've done so far, please give this a thumbs up. I'd also appreciate it if you follow my channel. I'm going to make a lot more videos to help you place the Accuplacer exam. And also, if you are interested in purchasing my workbook, the link is going to be in the description box. Any money that you use to purchase a workbook or purchase a checklist, that just helps me to dedicate more time to making videos so that maybe one day I can make this my full-time job. I'd really love that, you guys. So I'm going to show you one last way that we can go ahead and do this. Instead of making it all into decimal points, I'm going to show you how we can make this all into percentages, and it shouldn't be that difficult. So 0.075, 0.75%, and 3/4. So this is already a percentage, so we can keep it like that. Perfect. We can make this into a percentage by moving the decimal place to the right too. So because we're trying to make this into a percentage, last time we were trying to make a percentage into a decimal, but now we're trying to make a decimal into a percentage. So instead of going 2 to the left, we're going to go 2 to the right. 1, 2, and we're going to place our decimal point there, and we're going to add a percent sign. So it's going to be 7.5%. Super quick, we already got the answer. Again, when we're trying to change 0.98, when we're trying to change a decimal into a percentage, you move the decimal place over twice to the right, 1, 2, and then add a percentage sign. So 0.98 would be 98%. When we're trying to change a percentage into a decimal, instead of going 2 to the right, we go 2 to the left, 1, 2. And so 98% would be 0.98. Okay, so now we're going to go back. We have 2 percentages. Now we have to just change 3 over 4 into a percentage. Now, 3 over 4 is one of those fractions that we just need to memorize what percentage that is. So on your piece of paper, I want you to write these fractions down because it's good to just automatically know what these percentages are. So 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. They're the most common fractions you're going to see changed into percentages. You should just memorize these and it's going to help you get through the test so fast. 3/4 is 75%, 1/2 is 50%, and 1/4 is 25%. If you memorize these 3 fractions and their percentage equivalent, you are going to do so well for yourself. So if you just have to put it on a cue card and on one side put the percentage, on the other side put the fraction, do whatever it takes. Take a couple minutes each night, practice these. When you take your exam, it's going to save you so much amount of time. So we're going to go ahead and know by chance or by our heart or by the hard memorization that we've done that 3/4 is equal to 75%. And now we have them all as percentages, and now we can easily compare them as percentages. So we would say 0.75% is the smallest, then 7.5%, then 75%. And that was much easier to compare than decimals. So when you're solving this type of problem, you can either change them all into decimals, you can change them all into percentages, and I would not recommend you changing them all into fractions because that's just me personally, and it may be difficult to compare denominators if they're different. So you have the skills that are needed. You did so well with problems 7 through 14. Please tune in for my next video where we're going to go over problems 15 to 20. Have a great rest of your day, guys. See you soon.